What a finish to a football game. Wow. That had everything for everybody. It had some defense. It had points. We had our first dramatic finish of the game for the Penn State football season. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Sean Fitz with me for biggest game of the year so far. And a game, Fitz, coming into this, you said something super interesting. You thought that if they won this game, this virtually locked a playoff run into place. Do you feel that way after that game now?
I'm not going to say it because I'm going to get hammered I was almost hammered for saying that in the first place, for bringing the jinx. But I mean, it sets it up pretty nicely. Of course, Wisconsin's looking better right now. You go to Wisconsin in a couple of weeks, which is always a tough place to play. Minnesota, a tough place to play. So, hey, man, you look around college football, it's about getting the win. It's not about having the prettiest win. It's about being 6-0, which the Nittany Lions are. I guess you can call them bowl eligible. I don't know what that's worth anymore, but that's not the goal here. Penn State, 33-30, never in doubt, really. I mean, if we're honest here.
Yeah, this is, okay. You almost snuck that one by me while I was setting something else up. This is the LaBatt Postgame Show. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Sean Fitz, as we mentioned. Penn State wins 33-30 over USC. I got our regulars here in the chat. If you want to talk to us, a little different today than we have had for the first 5 games. Fitz and I are going to have a conversation. We're going to talk to you in the chat as well. So I'll be monitoring that a little bit easier. You won't have to hear me extemporaneously read anything out loud today, so that's really nice. Fitz, I just want to start with something I've been waiting to see for 3 years. And if I'm going to be honest, something I've been waiting to see since I've covered Penn State football, and even maybe before that. An honest-to-God franchise quarterback. And I don't know what the right word is in college football, but that's what I saw from Drew Allard today. 30 of 43, 391 yards. I know he had 2 interceptions. One of them I can even explain away. Yes, the Hail Mary at the end is a box score interception. The first quarter interception, that's a really great play by that linebacker. The second interception, really bad play by Allard. But the fact that he fought through this game, Penn State came back from 14 points down, which they have not done routinely, and I don't remember the last time they've done that. Especially, under James Franklin with Drew Allard at quarterback. The game he put together, that final drive he put together, pressure in his face on 4th down to find Julian Fleming. To me, I understand that there's a lot of things that go into this game. Tyler Warren should get a lot of love, but the way that fourth quarter drive played out, that is what can get you a college football playoff berth, and further is a quarterback playing exactly like that. So to me, I'm so impressed. I just want to give him the credit for evolving and growing and getting better. And Fitz, the fire he was showing at the end of the game was amazing.
The second 4th down that he stepped up, obvious pressure, straight up the middle, slides to his side, comes back across and throws it to Julian Fleming, who made 2 terrific catches after a horrid drop earlier in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really say enough about it. Penn State threw for 400 yards today. We did not script that out. That was not, that was supposed to happen last weekend against the other Los Angeles team.
Right.
But you got to say some good things about Drew Allard. There were times when, he just a touch off. You mentioned the interception, the Khalil Dinkins trying to fit it in there, but they were grooving at that point. I mean, that was a situation where you say run the football, but that's all hindsight talking after the pick, because they were throwing the hell out of it at that point, finding open guys, finding holes in the zone. Trey Wallace stepped up. Everything's going to be about Tyler Warren, but some of those secondary receivers there, Trey Wallace coming up, Liam Clifford making a couple of big catches, Fleming, of course. How about a really big grab on the sideline by Omari Evans? He dropped that ball last week.
Yeah.
You're looking all around, and it's, prisoner of the moment type stuff, because it feels like a great win. I'm sure we'll needle it a little bit more and come back down a little bit from this. But I mean, you got some of the things that you were looking for all first half. You're saying, who's going to step up and just make a play? Not even the spectacular play. Trey Wallace had an opportunity in the back of the end zone, didn't get it. But who's going to step up and make that play on either side of the ball? And then they got that late in the game, which, I mean, to be honest with you, it was pretty testy there for a while. And that wasn't just the scoreline. That was who's going to step up aside from Tyler Warren. They got some guys to do that. Drew, I don't want to say first and foremost, but anytime you got a passer that goes into enemy territory and does that, you got to tip your hat to him. That was a wonderful performance by that young man.
Yeah, and in the second half, they started being more aggressive, attacking some of those zones a little further downfield. A couple things I'm going to blend into my opinions of the first half. As always, I had a halftime to like really go back and look at some of the things. The third quarter is just a blender of like, what's going to happen? What do I need to do for the postgame show? So, but there are a lot of plays that we can get to in the fourth quarter. Abraham Akejafor says, really thought the running game would be more effective today. Can't wait for T-Freak's breakdown. They didn't run between the tackles, Fitz, which I was really surprised by.
Same.
Starting in this game, they played small ball, a lot of screens, a lot of throws, a lot of runs to the outside, misdirection, a lot of option plays. I was wondering which team was more afraid of their offensive line for some reason. And coming into this game, watching those defensive tackles on the interior, they fight, they play hard, but they wear down, and didn't feel like Penn State came in with a plan to wear them down. And so, we had 31 carries for 118 yards in this game, but it kind of felt like that whole situation, the running game, was secondary in the second half when they had to start throwing the football. So I guess, what did you think of the run game today?
I mean, you got some yards from Katron Allen. Obviously, Nick Singleton not at 100%. Nice touchdown there to tie the game late. But that's I don't know how USC loses that guy in the flat just with miles to run in front of him. But no, I think you got effective runs. I got to say, Drew Aller's running the ball. Big difference. He just had 4 carries, 32 yards. But that last one where he pulled it and took it right to the middle of the field for Ryan Barker to kick that field goal. That's probably not a play he makes last year. So I was impressed by that. Impressed by him gutting it out. You got 3.5 yards a carry from Katron Allen, which is kind of similar to what we saw last week when he carried the load. 16 carries, 56 yards and a touchdown. Just 8 yards for a long carry. It's pretty much what you're getting out of Katron these days. But I would say, I don't want to say effective running, but they picked some spots and picked up some nice games, especially in short yardage. I mean, that game really came down. I mean, you're only looking at 4 for 13 for Penn State on third downs, but 2 for 11 for SC. That really came down to some of that short yardage stuff, and Penn State was able to make it up. Didn't do that in the red zone, but they made it up for it between the 20s.
Yeah, not run. So last week we saw them bludgeon UCLA from the 10-yard line in with like run. And in this game, they come out and try to throw in the red zone. I thought USC did a really good job at the goal line and in short yardage, where we've seen teams in Penn State's rub route situations trying to get Tyler Warren free, going to the corner of the end zone. Instead of playing that straight up, they switched. So the middle guy takes Tyler Warren, so the rub route is completely taken out of the play. And that they did that a couple of times. There were a couple of times also that Penn State seemed to be attacking the boundary. A lot of runs into the short side of the field, a lot of throws to Tyler Warren, some throws to Liam Clifford, and a lot of catch and tackle in that short area of the field. I'd be curious to know what they saw on film that they liked so much going that way. But then in the second half, more aggressive. Some of those quarters and cover 3 coverages, if you do what they did, which is run some guys just underneath those umbrellas, you get some open plays. Want to get through a couple of these here on the post-game show. As always, we want to talk to you if you're new here, because this is a big game, and all these big games usually bring new people around. I'm T. Frank. I do film analysis. I try to give you as much of what happened in the game post-game. This one, we're going to be talking about your feelings quite a bit. Fitz is here. He's our insider with Blue White Illustrated, knows a lot about football in all different facets. So we're here to talk with you. So KJ Johnson, we put this up earlier. What a win. He's naming his firstborn son Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren Johnson 77. So that not the third, the 77th. Mike says, Drew bleeping Aller, what a win. Penn State gets one of those guys. Bruno says, thanks for all the coverage. Appreciate you as well. Michael McCullen, the beard father, is here. He's saying, thank God for the whatever higher power, etc. Wow. Fitz, I want to come to the Ryan Barker conversation quickly, because we've talked about the major players on offense, defense, but the kicking game, Penn State, how many field goals did they make in this game? 3 field goals in this game?
Yep. 4, actually.
4 field goals in this game.
34, 33, 20, and 36. Of course, the longest one iced it for Penn State. Great kicks. I mean, we talked a couple of weeks ago
down the middle.
When he came in. I mean, there were some tough angles there. Kicking is very hard. I said it before. Sanders Hadak did not make the trip to LA. So read into that what you will in terms of the kicking battle, but I think the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, 4 really good kicks. He also had every PAT that he made was I mean, not even in doubt. I mean, hey man, you're talking about a guy who walked in. It was a walk-on guy. I thought in the spring he was going to win the job. He didn't. Sander made more kicks in camp. But to stay there, to hang on. Ton of credit to Ryan Barker. Awesome job by him. Also, awesome job by Gabe Nwosu. I know we don't talk kickoff specialists enough. I mean, I talk to myself about it all the time. He almost came off the hook there at the end of the game.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Put it about a half yard inside the pylon. But he did exactly what he needed to do. He was a massive, massive guy when you're talking about the matchups today, because as you saw, USC, tremendous athletes everywhere on the field. When they get in open space, they were tough to find, tough to bring down. And of course, you saw it right away. Tough to keep out of the end zone. But Penn State, by their special teams, which has been not good all year, no question about that. Not good enough all year. I think they did it today. Riley Thompson, 2 punts, 45 or 42.5 yard average. I think people are still going to be down on him, but he's been doing exactly what they want. And the key thing with him, no returns. No returns. One return for 0 yards against Riley Thompson this year. That is by design. That is part of the rugby style. That is part of the new gunners that they have playing. And they did a tremendous job. So special teams passes with flying colors today. Ryan Barker, have a night, kid. That's awesome.
Yeah, A. Campbell in here with a massive donation because he's super relieved. He said this would have been a frustration post, but now just one because we're all relieved. Barker and Aller with big stones coming up in the end. I absolutely agree with you on that one. Jay says we didn't convert on 2 inside the 5, dropped an easy interception and threw 2 interceptions, still won. Warren is the best player in college football. Nutshelling that. Yeah, not a good game in the first half, not a good game overall, but this is still a good opponent. And I know that they have now lost their 3-3 on the season now, a dangerous opponent. And Penn State went into the other time zone where teams are 2-8. Now they're 3-8 in those situations. Brett, I should not be doing math live. Fitz. Oh my.
Nope.
Oh,
not at all.
Penn State played the team that was ranked 11th last week. Didn't care what others say. Franklin and this team have the energy to win. Pete says, I'd comment more, but my wife still has me on oxygen after that game.
Buddy, the heart units around here are going to be filled up, because that was one that was not easy to swallow. It was fury in the first half. The second half, I think the nerves were certainly there, but I mean, you got to credit the team. This is a big win. I understand what USC's record is, but you watched that game today. You saw a team that can beat anybody because of the athletes that they have. And they almost did that to Penn State. Penn State, to their credit, to James Franklin's credit, to Andy Kotelnicki's credit, to Tom Allen's credit, which I wasn't saying that about an hour ago. They were able to turn that on their head, and Justin Lustig as well with the special teams. So, hey man, again, we're gonna pitch this the entire season. The win is what matters. And this wasn't one of those 3-point wins over Bowling Green type of win is a win. This is a good win that you're going to look upon. The committee's going to look upon, and they're going to be sold that Penn State is a resilient football team with these other guys stepping up around Tyler Warren. I mean, that is something that you want in your back pocket right there.
Just to remind fans, remember last week when a ton of top 10 and top 15 teams, including USC, lost in these situations to Vanderbilt or to Arkansas. Arkansas, I believe, beat Tennessee last week. I should stop talking off the top of my head because there's nothing up here anymore. Showtime said they did it sloppy, but got it done. 44 is the man of the game. Always love seeing our regulars here. Thanks for being here, Showtime. We'll get back to more of your comments and conversation. We'll get more of Fitz's thoughts on the game. But right now, we need to tell you that when it's time to kick back and watch the game, grab a Pilsner that's as pristine as Happy Valley itself. I don't know if there's a lot of kicking back in this game. There's a lot of sitting forward in this game. LaBatt Blue and LaBatt Blue Light deliver an unmatched taste that goes down smooth every time. Super excited to have them here on the postgame show as our title sponsor. Fitz, they have been unofficially sponsoring the Blue White Tailgate, or the Blue White Illustrated Tailgate, for a while now, right?
That's right. They've been out there the last couple of years. If you have visited, you see the LaBatt tents, you see my dad cooking up a storm, but that they have been very, very generous and welcome to this. And I'm glad that we had them on the postgame show. Kevin's done a lot of great work with what we're trying to do. And he's actually a subscriber, a member. And we're big fans of what they do as well, because tell you what, you're going to need a LaBatt after this one.
Yeah, or a couple to get through the game as well. That was you can't help but you're watching the game. I'm trying to do the X's and O's, and I can feel my heart rate getting up. Everyone's excited about this game. That was a very exciting finish. And when it's time to bleed blue and white, drink blue and light. Of course, I love the fact that LaBatt is a sponsor here. I grew up in the shadow of Canada, so this was my first beer growing up, and this, just like all of our other sponsors that I feel like fit the show really well, LaBatt fits this show really well. Excited to talk to you about them going forward throughout the Penn State football season here on the postgame show. But now we have to get to our defensive player of the game. The defensive player of the game brought to you by State College criminal defense attorney Matt McClanahan of McClanahan Law Firm. He was texting me. I think he was at Champs downtown earlier today. He's a diehard Penn State football fan. He got there early so that he could get his spot, and he said it was getting rowdy at like 3 o'clock when I was driving back from the tailgate show. So he was very confident that this was going to be a win, although just like the rest of us, his predictions, he was texting me before the show, not really all that close today in this particular game because the defense did not play well in the first half. However, there are some players of the game, defensive players of the game. Fitz, I want you to give yours first, and then I'll flip a coin and pick mine afterwards.
It's tough, man, because you look at that, and it was a heck of an attack by USC, who went almost exclusively misdirection, trying to keep that defensive line off. I saw a lot of posts today that said USC really manhandled Penn State's defensive line. It really didn't. They just got him going in one direction and went back the other way, which is it's hard to do. I think the linebackers could have stepped up a little bit. I'm going to go. You know what? I'm going to go off the board. Zion Tracy had some very big plays for Penn State. Got away with one in overtime, but I wasn't looking. I didn't see it. But no, he stepped up, did a really good job in that lion position. Of course, Penn State missing KJ Winston. That's a big deal. Jalen Reed went out for a little bit, ended up getting the pick at the end of the game. He could certainly be in the mix for player of the game as well. But there was a drive or two where Zion Tracy just kept bouncing up, making plays in coverage, making tackles. And really, that was something Penn State needed. There was not many tackles to be had in the first half. So I'm going to give he just had one tackle total, one pass breakup. But
he had a hard job. I mean, he was on Branch quite a bit. And I said coming into this game on our Friday chat, he's got the feet. He's got the athleticism to cover that guy. But he's a young football player. And so, I was wondering how that matchup would go. I think you make a really great point there that he, a quiet player of the game there on defense.
Yeah, just wanted to go off the board a little bit. And I think, he caught the punts they needed to. I think that's still a work in progress. Penn State, no punt, or I guess one punt return for 1 yard. So a non-factor as a punt returner. But at the same time, you heard his number, or you saw his number out there more than you would have thought. So definitely going to give Zion Tracy his flowers here. And I think you can pick a couple of other guys, because there was, I know it's 30 points. And I said this last week, Penn State's 2016 defense averaged 25 points given up against them. So this was a very 2016 game. This was, you remember your heart back 8 years ago? It's probably not in great shape compared to then. But you look at what they did 8 years ago, it was a very 2016 game here. So a couple of guys, you know what? I'm going to go back to you and see what you pick.
Yeah, so one guy dropped an interception, the other guy caught the interception, so I'm going with Jalen Reed. But Abdul Carter had a strong game, setting the edge against the run, and that elite sack that he had on the right tackle where he dipped underneath. But Jalen Reed, just overall, his game, his tackling, being around the football. I want to go back and see some of the things from kind of like the coach's film and some of the other things to see how they adjusted in the second half. But speaking about the defense, in the first half, you nailed it. Misdirection. They were doing everything they can to get Penn State running in the wrong way. And Penn State came out and played a lot of man coverage. So if Kobe King has one player and he sees that reverse, that end around, and he's trying to head off Branch to get in front of that, suddenly you've got two guys going chasing ghosts, and there's a big play the other way. In the third quarter, first down is so important to this defense, Fitz, and the way they played first down, and honestly, the way that Lincoln Riley called some of those. I went through and I wanted to highlight some of these because this is the magic of Penn State's defense. Is they just get aggressive, and they come out sharp in the third quarter to make some of these plays that weren't there for some reason in the first half. But in the first drive, Carter and Kobe King fill a gap. They get a negative play. Now, USC comes back, and Miller Moss hits a cover 2 shot that was beautiful for 30 yards. But then it's Zane Durant in the backfield. And then suddenly you got Jalen Reed coming through on that holding play, putting them so far behind the sticks that there wasn't really a chance for them to convert that. And then the next drive that they had, Carter drops the interception. They come back with Zion Tracy. Really good play there. So they just were able to put USC in way more second and long, third and long situations, and they're able to convert those and get off the field, even though if they gave up a couple of first downs. The fourth quarter, kind of addressing that drive that put USC up for the touchdown. The opposite happened. So a screen for 10 yards to get him going. Outside zone, they're running towards Penn State. Penn State does this thing, Fitz, where almost automatically they have formation. The offense is on the boundary. They'll zone drop a defensive end and blitz a corner from the other side. And all day, USC just ran at it. So in this situation, that's what they did. They got a couple of runs together. Tyler Elsdon gave up a couple of runs, and they weren't able to control the ground game in that fourth quarter drive. But then they came back, adjusted, and they were able to get the stop. So I think the defense overall, as you said, I guess, how do you grade that? You know, I filibustered there talking about the first half, second half, all the defense. How do you grade their performance today in the two halves plus the fourth quarter?
I mean, I think it's passing. Obviously, you got the win, but I mean, there's still a lot to take back from that and think about. I look at things like Tony Rojas. I did not think played a very good game.
Did not. Yeah,
I thought he was out of position more often than not. I think that shoulder is something that's bothering him, and he's not throwing his weight into some things. He let up contain a couple of times. I believe on that screen on the first down screen that you just referenced. I mean, he was a guy that could have kept that inside and just took on the defender there. So I have concerns about the second level of the defense. But I mean, let's look at the end result here. Like, they got to stop when they needed to. You see, like that's probably the frustrating thing, is you see the plan in action. When Penn State is on the front foot offensively, they are also on the front foot defensively, and they're able to do the things that they do with Jalen Reed as a blitzer, with Abdul Carter, who you guys keep saying move to linebacker, which is not the best use of his talents. You want to see him as a linebacker? Look at that reverse. That was him as a linebacker getting completely turned around and completely losing that play, because he's a flipping stud going after the quarterback. And that's what he did well. If you watch late in the game, USC deploying 2 offensive linemen, and I believe that was Bowling Green that did that earlier this year, 2 offensive linemen for Abdul Carter on every play. It wasn't a situation where you're sliding protection or anything like that. You are finding 11 and getting 2 guys on him because he is beating you. If you ask Lincoln Riley who the most impactful defensive player is, it was Abdul Carter. So really, really good things, but like Penn State's got to be in that zone, be in that game that they want to play for that defense to maximize it. They got burnt on the AJ Harris got burnt on that slant where he went for the big jam, gave up inside leverage. No, you can't do that. Like that, those are the things that they got beat with. But some resiliency at the end. I feel awesome for Jay Reed just picking off that ball at the end. I don't know what happens if he doesn't. It could be moot at that point. But for him to get that interception, for Penn State to get a turnover, which is still very lacking. Like, they are very, very much missing turnovers compared to the Manny Diaz defense that was here last year. But resilience.
It's kind of the nature. It's kind of the nature of playing as much press man coverage, because your back is to the football, so you don't have as many opportunities to jump in front. And Manny Diaz and the pressure that he put on the quarterback, they were able to, I think, do more in terms of interceptions, force fumble sacks. This is a lot about mitigation. 220 yards in the passing game for Miller Moss. So I agree with you. The turnovers have to come from somewhere, but the corners specifically, and I don't remember if they got a lot from the corners last year, but the turnovers absolutely are lacking. I just think a little bit of it is that's part of the scheme when you run as much man as they do. What do you think about this?
If you look at Miller Moss's turnovers prior to today, a lot of those because of pressure. And I don't know that we attribute that interception at the end of the game to pressure, but there was certainly more pressure there. And you're okay with the results there. Penn State with just 1 sack on the day, that came from Carter. That was a big one. But you've got pressure without the finished product, and that's still fine. So I feel like that's good. I will say this, T. Frank, before we move on, a lot of people in the chat, just be happy. Like, you're sucking the fun out of this whole thing. If you're trying to needle what's going on and this guy should be fired and this guy should, just have fun, man. It's Saturday night, 7:45. Hopefully you got a LaBatt blue light in your hand or whatever you choose, and just enjoy the win, man. These don't come around very often, and
especially in this one, in the way this one worked out for Penn State fans. I mean, that is your cortisol levels are up, but that doesn't always mean a bad thing. And if you want to find like-minded people to talk about this and you want to continue this conversation after the show, there's a bunch of people here that I know need to do this because I know you're regulars and we're giving this to you. The big win, big savings. Join BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, 50% off, promo code We Are for an annual membership. We had this deal going on all week long. It's going to go on for the next couple of days as well in celebration of the win. Join us. By this time next year, you will still have a subscription to Blue White Illustrated. You can get Fitz's reporting. You can get recruiting information from Ryan Snyder. You can get Nate Bauer, basketball, football, wrestling, recruiting, everything. We are the leader in Penn State sports coverage. So join us and get all of the benefits of BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for half off. This up here from Sam. Soft Julian Fleming breakout game? What do you think about that idea?
I mean, he stepped up when he needed to, and that's really what you're looking for a veteran to be consistent. And you talk about how this room has changed in the last year. Who makes that catch last year? I don't know. So those two catches last year, who makes them? I don't know. But hey, man, you got to give him a hat tip. Like I said, Liam Clifford, Amari Evans, not the top guys on the billing, but made some good plays. And of course, Trey Wallace, 3 for 53, didn't find the end zone, but made some pretty good catches, pretty important catches. And they got over the hump of what they needed to get, which the early drop by Fleming. I know that Wallace had a drop on the sideline as well, but like they got over what they needed to. We got to talk Tyler Warren, right? Like we've done a nice job of putting him to the side and saying 17 catches, 224 yards, just one touchdown, Tyler Warren, spectacular, absolutely spectacular. They got him involved in different ways. They got him snapping the ball, which, I'm a fan of. And it was just one of those things where you needed a guy to step up and be your pillar right there. And he was that guy. They kept going back to him. USC kept letting him run free half the time. I don't get it. I'm not a defensive coordinator.
But that's the magic of the zone. So if you play zone and you're trying to keep a lid on everything, that Penn State was using their receivers to run off the zone, and then he comes underneath with those wheel routes, and they just didn't. I watched a couple of other games, and Zachariah Branch has kind of a similar, you've got to defend this guy. So I watched Minnesota completely break most coverage rules and just keep a guy in man coverage on him the entire time. They did that a little bit in the first half, and then they just stopped doing that. 151 yards after the catch Fitz. To me, that's the number. It's not even the 224. It's that he generated so much of that on his own in those situations. I want to see how many broken tackles he has after the game when I go through and I look at the film and then some of the PFF data that comes out, because it's got to be 4 at minimum, maybe 5 in terms of yards after contact, yards after catch. He was phenomenal in a way that translates. And I know that this is the conversation around an All-American tight end, et cetera, et cetera. I'm trying not to have the first round draft pick conversation, but I just don't know how you look at that and go, yeah, that's not something I don't want that in my NFL offense. I don't want a dude that can run, block, and catch, and you can't cover in zone coverage.
I mean, it was just every single way. Running shovel passes where he's essentially, you're running him up the middle. Like those are things. How about, and I got to say this for a couple of guys at the end, the protection of the ball, so invaluable for what they did. I mean, those guys had that thing in a vault. Just holding on to it as USC was punching for it, as they rightfully should. Penn State taking care of the football, not putting, no fumbles, right? I think I don't have that page up right now.
Katron Allen fumbled the ball and then caught it in his own hand afterwards. Like it slipped and then he caught it. So I don't think there was a fumble in the game.
Okay. Yeah. No credited fumbles. So Penn State taking care of the football. Of course, the Aller pick into triple coverage, not what you're looking for, but pretty good job taking care of the football on the road in an atmosphere it's weird, man. Like it's a 12:30 kick out there. It was a ton of Penn State fans that traveled. We saw pictures where there's a lot of white out there. But it's a weird scenario. It's very different than a lot of places in the Big Ten that you go. And he managed to step up and say, and do it. So I'm very impressed with that offense, kicking back, making the plays when they had to, and sort of turning it around at halftime. And we've seen this before. It's not a halftime speech. It's not anything like that. It is like focusing on your execution, focusing on where you're supposed to be, and coming back and making those fixes. Fixes are not necessarily changes. They are patches and things like that to make you more effective. And you saw that clearly in the third quarter. Penn State did a nice job, especially on offense.
I liked how aggressive they were because it felt like, again, biting at the edges of the defense instead of attacking a defense that I think a lot of us know, or it was susceptible to a lot of different things that you wanted to do to them. I still am fascinated to see on film why they weren't running up the middle. There's a bunch of stuff I want to get to here in the chat. I do want to break down those Aller interceptions because I think they're interesting and they speak to maybe some of the scheming against him specifically. Stephen Light says Barker for the win. Have to really admire his pure grit. I won't complain about anything. Not the time for that. Steven got the message before you even said it, Fitz. So appreciate you, Steven Light, a regular here. And somebody, this is a perfect example of somebody who started out as a regular here on the show and is now a regular at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Always appreciate Steven. Showtime says, go ahead. What's up, Fitz?
No, there's one here from TJ that says, did Carter prove his worth, or did Carter prove the worth on the non-interception, and a few others that his hands often been in the dirt? That's going all the way on the other side. Like, you don't have to make that argument. That's that when we're talking about Carter as a defensive end versus a linebacker, you don't have to point out the extremes in terms like that. That's a play he should make, obviously, but that's still not an easy play. Like, let's get, like, I think you focus on what he does at so great with defensive end, and that's your argument, and that will back you up. Like, the things that he does and the attention that he is shown as a pass rusher will back you up. It's just this conversation is still happening 6 weeks into the season, and he's a guy that has shown like he's going to be first team all Big Ten at the end of the season. And Penn State fans as a defensive end, and Penn State fans are going to be like, oh, well, I guess he was good. Yeah. Like, just like we've seen with Penn State defensive ends before. So like that's where I'm going with that is like how
Chop Robinson didn't get enough sacks, right? Like there's always a thing unless you're an All-American.
AK, well, I guess AK had the sacks, but Adis, just all these guys, they just turn into first team all Big Ten defensive ends, and we don't enjoy them in the moment. And I think that's what we're doing with Abdul right now.
Yeah. Showtime says, want to caution that after much deserved celebration this week, but Wisconsin looks good after a win over Rutgers, 42-7. Showtime, I'm going to be breaking down and looking at all of that Wisconsin film. I am not in the boat of Wisconsin is this boogeyman on the road. I understand all of the reasons why, and I think those are fair and valid, but I want to see it first because what I saw last year from Wisconsin, unless they've made some radical changes, this is a team that I think Rutgers was a little hollow to begin with. Looking at the way they play football and who they've played, I don't necessarily want to look at Rutgers and go, oh no, they just beat a 4-1 Rutgers team. Ted says this. I love this. People who disregard their data. Sorry, Fitz, I'll get back to you in 1 second. I've been wanting. Ted says, I'm at the game, so I have no idea what we did well. Donating because you guys are awesome. I love people who disregard their data.
That is Ted. That means Ted is happy, and we love happy people around here. So that was awesome. Rutgers very bad. I watched a lot of that game today. I don't know why. There's a decision that I made, and I'm not proud of it. Rutgers not bad. There was a stat that was up. If I tweeted it, 7 points in the last 10 trips into the opponent's territory. If you go by average and you do math, which we don't do on the show here, it's not good. And then they got a field goal blocked on the 11th trip. So they're not good. But we will see about Wisconsin in 2 weeks because Penn State's got a bye coming up next week, and they're going to have the opportunity to prepare for them.
And I think that's a really important buy for a lot of different reasons. Get this team centered after this trip out to survive USC, get that buy and kind of recenter for this second half. There's been a lot of things that we didn't think an early season buy would help, but having that time to recover from the KJ Winston injury, get some guys back from bumps and bruises. Now you have this buy. Everything that we thought in terms of setting up for this second half run has set up for them, including, as Ryan says here, Drew Aller is player of the game. I'm assuming he doesn't mean Drew Shelton. Having him lead that drive at the end proves he's that guy that can beat good teams, which is what we need. Almost had my second heart attack today. First off, I'm glad you survived the first one. I'm learning stuff about a friend of mine now for the first time, an internet friend. So glad that you didn't have that second one. David says, gutted out a win. Need more Nick inside the 10. Linebackers didn't have a great day, but stepped up all over. Overall team win. And Tyler Warren is all that. That is all. I'm editorializing a little bit. David, in a much better mood than he was last week. He was not happy with that UCLA win. So glad to see people are a bit happier about that. What did you think of stalling out in the red zone and some of those? I never want to be sitting here arguing game plan and play call decisions, but it is surprising given Penn State's nature in running the football that in the red zone, they did not have as much success as we would expect.
I agree with that. I think, the phrase too cute is going to be thrown around. And I think there's something to that. There's a lot of, a a lot of in between the 20s type plays where you're, running picks and things like that. And sometimes they work and oftentimes they work, especially when you've got a guy like Tyler Warren. But just getting all around that, feeding all the mouths, I think there's something to that as well. Not crazy about the call on Julian Fleming. I know why they made the call on Julian Fleming.
I didn't see it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think I know why they made the call on Julian Fleming on the first drive, because he did have his arm up, and that is kind of the determination there is that he was trying to get in the way. But I didn't like it. But like that first drive, man, like build the whole plane out of the scripted drives if that's what's going to happen. I mean, it was really impressive to see them go down, to focus on some things and to work off of some of the things that have been successful for them and go the other direction. I think that's really the big thing is you're seeing, and I hate that I'm going to use this phrase, but an expansion of the playbook, not because they're hiding stuff and not because they're doing things, but because they can work off the things that have been successful, and they know that teams are gearing up for that. So you can go back the other direction. So I think we saw that. I don't think it was an active hiding of the playbook through the first 5 weeks, but you saw some new things today that were really encouraging.
Well, they just did all of the things. Like, so we've seen all of those iterations of those plays, and they took some of those similar plays. There was one where they had a shovel to Nick Singleton. Had they shoveled off instead of handing to Katron Allen, that's just the same exact play that they did with Tyler Warren earlier, just a different variant. And that is what Andy Kotelnicki's offense is about, is having these very similar looking things. I actually, like on the Blue White Illustrated message board, I called it the Blizzard play of the day. It's the same thing, just different like candy pieces inside of the Blizzard. Noah says this, and I think this is
you stretched
true.
for that one, by the way.
What's that?
You stretched for that one, by the way.
Well, Noah, no, I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name. Sorry. Old Penn State would not get back up after in-game adversity. Team got knocked over multiple times today, got back up. This team is different. I am not a vibes guy. I am not a gut check guy, but yes, I firmly believe that is something that separates this particular team. I'm not saying that all of the iterations under James Franklin have not had this ability to overcome adversity, but we have seen a little bit of that over the last 18 months from this particular group of players. So I'm very impressed by their ability to fight through that adversity, show that growth. Bruno asked this question, and I was wondering this in the game. Yes or no, best game of Drew Aller's career fits? Do you want me to go first? I can filibuster while you think about it.
I'm only thinking, like, if we disqualify West Virginia, like overall, yes, I think it was.
I would agree. And the thing is, with that West Virginia game, and in a lot of these situations,
he loves West Virginia.
But he did harder things here.
Right.
So that the West Virginia game that we saw in 2023, he got a lot of the looks he was expecting, and he threw the football, and that was the game. Like, he was able to find the open players, and he delivered to what he was expecting. That is different than the freshman linebacker suddenly has all Madden awareness. So those two interceptions, I want to break those down here quickly, because Drew Aller has come back to that backside dig multiple times over his career and has had that pass all the time. It was just basic cover 3. He read it correctly, but I went back and I watched the replay of the linebacker. One thing linebackers never do, Fitz, is have any sort of awareness in pass like patterns. So normally what happens is the linebacker will continue to expand to the sideline. He'll just continue his flat and his zone defense, and he'll expand, and then that window will open. He was expanding, and then he did one of these, looking for where the route was, and then he undercut the play. So that's a very good play by that player. Drew did not, he turned backside because he knew where the route was, and he knew the anticipation and the timing, but he was not anticipating that player being there. So as much as he shouldn't have thrown that, I don't blame him for that, because he's done that so well so many times. The second one, number 7 in that situation, was an add-on. So he was in a blitzing situation, in a blitzing formation. And from the way it's set up, and I'm assuming the way Aller acted in that situation, he was expecting that guy to attack, to blitz. And so he was an extra zone dropper. He should not have been in the pre-snap picture. And again, Aller comes backside without, I don't want to say without looking, but he's anticipating where Dinkins is. He knows his play cold. And when he's reading the defense, he knows where they're supposed to be. And then there was just this rogue element that jumped in front of the ball. Great call by USC. Great play design. You'd like your third-year quarterback to never make a mistake. I don't necessarily mind those because he was playing confident and not skittish, where he was like, yeah, I'll just rip it to the backside. And he got burned for it a couple times, but he also in the fourth quarter threw to Julian Fleming on the same play and got a fourth down while running through the pocket. So that confidence stayed with him the whole game, and I love that part.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. Like, I think he was very, very on key in terms of what he was looking for, and he didn't look to do too much. USC went to that 2 safety look a couple times, and it's just the over the top stuff wasn't there. The one time it came out of that muddle huddle wonky formation where Warren snapped the ball to Bo, and Bo threw it to Drew, and his best pass I've seen Bo throw for a long time. So no, it was great. And then Warren went up, made the play. I don't know how there wasn't a flag on that no pass interference, but he made the catch, so it didn't matter. So but yeah, it was very impressive in terms of like what he needed to do. And I don't want to say played within himself, because I think he extended through that, especially with running the football, especially with doing some things on those fourth downs, evading pressure and hitting them, and sometimes evading pressure and not hitting them. Like there's incompletions that happens in football. But to throw an incompletion is better than to lose 7 yards in a sack. So those things continue to progress in his game. He's just got to keep building on it. He is a tremendously talented kid. You see it. You see some of the best throws you'll see in college football coming from this guy. He's just got to continue to build on it, and he'll be quite all right.
I've had a high opinion of what he's capable of. Last year when he was fighting through some of the things in the offensive scheme and some of the things that he was asked to do, I tried to point out to people, listen, this is what he's capable of. Like, they just need to bring this out of him more. And this year it has been a little inconsistent because, first off, they have not needed him to throw the ball 43 times in a game. But when they did, they found a way to score. And I said this pregame, and I was expecting maybe a little bit of a different game from the defense, but the Penn State offense found a way to win. They got 33 points in this game where they did not start fast, but they were able to get through that and score 27 points after halftime. And I'm very impressed by the resiliency and Aller's next step. Like, this is the next step of what he's supposed to be. Adam donates to the channel. Thank you, Adam. And now 2 kids, 1 wife, all PSU says, talk about a heart attack. T. Frank, in your opinion, why did they get away from the run? It wasn't very effective, and they needed to score points. So I think they sprinkled it in enough. Number 4, the linebacker, is a good football player. And I'm wondering if they were trying to run away from him a lot of the night. But what I noticed on film is when you run at him, he doesn't always hold his gap well, but he's great sideline to sideline. So I'm curious, about what the decision-making process there was to not run as much gap scheme. There was not as much counter. It's something that I was expecting coming in this game. They're going to run a lot of zone. Minnesota was successful with that. But I guess I was expecting a little bit more downhill attacking against a front 7 that has been susceptible to that. What was your opinion of just overall the run game and how that performed, and the reason? Maybe what are your thoughts about why they got away from it?
Yeah, I think, excuse me, I think they can take a lesson from USC here, a little bit more misdirection, things like that. It wasn't a situation where Penn State was moving them off the ball. And we'll go back, and I don't like to evaluate offensive line play because it doesn't show up on the live showing. But there was I think there were some cutback lanes there, and I think Penn State could or was close to breaking some based on those cutback lanes. Katron really doesn't run that way. Like I think it's both a compliment and a criticism in terms of that. He's looking for what he gets, and he gets what he gets. And that's great. But there's a couple times when, just one of those, I was impressed by Marks. I mean, he did a really good job finding the backside. And I think he knew going into it, that's what he would have to do. It was not a situation where he ran right at the defensive end and made a play on the outside, or was able to cut back, or was able to cut upfield. He had to cut back across the formation, and that's when he got successful. And that is why I look at the second level of Penn State defense and think, it's a little susceptible to that. Credit USC for taking advantage of the aggressiveness of those defensive linemen, but it wasn't a situation where. Sorry, I've just switched from offense to defense. I didn't realize it. But credit USC for taking advantage of that aggressiveness and coming back against the grain. And that's when they got their yards. Yeah,
with the run defense specifically in the first half, I thought I thought Lincoln Riley had a good game plan outside of the trick plays, and it showed up a little bit later. I mentioned that they ran it. They I feel like had a good feeling of Penn State's tendencies and took advantage of those. And that was a big thing in the run game where Penn State being aggressive is one thing, but then when they're aggressive and they're slightly out of position, now they're running hard the wrong way because the defense is taking them that way, and they're running hard in the wrong direction. And that allowed, 20 carries for 111 yards. But importantly, I know they only got 10 points in the second half. So once everything calmed down on the defensive side of the ball, at least they were still able to limit the other team to only one touchdown in the second half. TJ asks a question here, Fitz, and I'm actually reevaluating after your defensive player of the game and his performance in Zion Tracy. TJ says, can Reed play the Lion? Have we seen enough to establish what he is, what he needs to be? After the performance of Zion Tracy, is it as big of a deal to move him back to Lion if they can continue to play at this high of a level, or do they still need to incorporate that into the defense for other matchups down the road?
Matchup dependent. Obviously, you look at USC's personnel groups, a lot of receivers. So you're playing a lot of, Tracy and Cam Miller were both out there. So you want probably Reed, you want back in that situation because those are corners that you're asking to play safety. It would be nice to, I think in an ideal world, to have some sort of balance where you have to, but you have the Lion and you have the position that Reed plays, and you can, you can flip flop those guys. Like you can make them play almost different, almost left side, right side type things, and then make your call based on that. I don't know that it's ideal. That's why Winston's so valuable. Like that is why all three of those safeties and Wheatley, I thought played well again today, especially as a tackler. I thought, he did a good job, but that is why they're so valuable. And you don't quite have that. Again, Zion Tracy, my defensive player of the game, I thought he played tremendous, but at the same time, it's clearly, I think, on a curve based off of what we know Winston can, or what we believe Winston could do, what we know that Reed can do. So I think it's a give and take type thing. But tell you what, Zion Tracy, he took a lot of it today. He was awesome.
Yeah. This is just, sorry, I got distracted in the chat. This is an excellent troll. Bama PSU says, we need Matt Rule, quarterback under center, fullback dotting the I if they have any shot at a national championship. Yes, in 1987, I would say that's absolutely true. But I don't agree with that right now. Coming up in just a little bit, James Franklin's press conference. Our hardworking reporters at the stadium are going to give you their post-game analysis and James Franklin's press conference on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. So once we're done talking and taking your questions and having a conversation about this show and the game and your thoughts, make sure you stick around for all that information, because some of these things that we're talking about, James Franklin brings up in the post-game press conference. He can answer those questions for you, because a lot of times we're pretty smart, Fitz, and we have a bead on some of the things that happened in the game as to what he's going to answer that we've asked over the last hour. Any other thoughts that are coming to you? I have my notes here on the show that I think we've gotten to most of those. Is there anything else that sticks out to you that I haven't asked you that or we haven't talked about yet?
No, we had a beat. Unfortunately, we had a beat on that first half in terms of like what USC could do, like theoretically could do to Penn State, and then they did it, and that was not great. That first half, not great at all. I thought Tom Allen was pretty well schooled in that first half. To his credit, to that defense's credit, they came back and did a really nice job. Took care of the football, cut down the penalties. I'm going to pull up the penalties here real quick because there weren't too many at all. And that is a stark departure.
Offsides.
Yeah. 3 for 25 yards, all on offense. Offensive pass interference with Fleming call. Yeah. And then they had a couple of false starts. So cleaned it up on the road, and that's exactly what you need to do.
Something I need to take a lap here, or at least I need to admit, be a man and admit when I'm wrong. I didn't think if Penn State played man coverage in this game, I did not think it was going to go well for them. Now, USC still got yards against zone or man, and I think that's fair to say. Like, Miller Moss is a good quarterback. You saw some of the throws he made on the run. I know he ultimately threw the ball to Penn State to end their opportunity to win the game in regulation, but he did a lot and does a lot for that offense to get them out of bad situations. That I think there was a Zane Durant pressure where he rolls out and throws on the run and got a first down. He does some really good things with the football. I didn't think that Penn State could match up against those receivers in one-on-one situations. And for the most part, they did. They were able to do a good job in man coverage. And, I asked James Franklin on Wednesday, if you see some sort of tendency, how do you take advantage of it without skewing too far away from who you are and what you are? And I was pretty in the first half. I was saying, look, this is what you get. I told you. And then the second half, they're like, hey, we told you we can do this. And for the defense, that's what they did. They just came out. They tactically played zone at times, but man coverage is what won them the game. And I'm very impressed by that. I now have a new esteem for some of those coverage players and what they're capable of. And I think that bodes really well that you tested and found something else out in this team that they can adapt and overcome the loss of a guy like KJ Winston and still find the players to play at this level. Of course, the question is, Fitz, can they do it against Ohio State?
Hey, what a terrific question that you would bring up after a really big win. You're so unlike the Penn State fans in our chat, which we really appreciate. Thanks for everybody coming out. That's and like the video, follow us, do all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's I'm not going to call it a monumental win. Penn State, it was a better team. They should have won this football game. They were by what? Would that end up 4.5, 5.5, something like that? They won by 3, which is, hey, that's a sweet spot. But you got the W. So I think that it's exactly the type of thing that can set you up for the second half of the season. You just look back to August and think, what's your record prediction right now? 10-2. Okay. So where does that second loss come? On the road at USC, a very popular choice. It was a popular choice with me. I didn't think that USC, especially after watching them against Minnesota, was unbeatable by any stretch of the imagination. And I changed my pick, and we'll see what happens the rest of the season. But very, very resilient win for Penn State. And I'll tell you what, it's the secret sauce of college football here, especially covering Penn State. You don't get a ton of close games. And when you do, typically they're against Ohio State, they're against Michigan. You don't win those games. So Penn State wins this game against Ohio State, or excuse me, Penn State wins this game against USC, and it is worth tipping the hat because that is not always the result that you're used to.
And it's also, this is a team that has played almost all of their competition very close. So they may have not won those games, but they have fought in every single game. And this is a team that did it again at home against a top 4 team. Crypto Ducat, Fitz, I know you're not here usually. Last year, Crypto Ducat and I almost got into an argument on the postgame show because he was very emphatic that about, I don't even remember was it at this point, but he's here with $100 donation. And he is very hard to please. And he says this is exactly the kind of game James doesn't typically win, meaning James Franklin. Not the way we should win, but a win nonetheless. In this case, a win is a win. Warren and Fleming, men among boys. He's very happy with the win here for Penn State. So again, be like Crypto Ducat. He is not somebody who is a James Franklin fan, but he is happy that Penn State was able to win this football game. So I think we've got some good examples.
And with those 2 4th down catches, I think we're going to hammer home that Julian Fleming spells his damn last name with 1 M.
Oh no, he did it. I didn't even see.
He did it. Everybody does it. Everybody does it. Anyway, go on.
See Paul King, he's also here. He says, appreciate the win, tired of the negativity. It is the internet. And that's just generally that's how this goes. I think overall, this is a very positive chat for most of the time. When Penn State does lose, it is interesting. I understand, by the way, and what I always say here on the postgame show is like, I just want to give you the correct language, the specificity for your feelings, whichever way they are. I don't know what you're sorry about, bud. I don't know what you're sorry about. This is excellent. Oh, about the 1M.
That is an apology accepted. Yes.
Yeah.
I've been dealing with that since he was a freshman at Southern Columbia, so I'm not surprised.
Since 2018, this is a long time. Yeah. Greg says, thrilled with the win. Can we correct defense issues in time for Ohio State? I don't know what the specific defensive issues are other than some miscommunication and some overexcitement, because I think in the second half they played well. But again, in games with tight margins, obviously you got to come out and play a full game. And I would say Penn State did not play a full game here, so it fits. So I guess that's the one thing we haven't talked about is another slow start. 6 points in the first half for the offense. The defense gives up way more yardage and points than we expected. Is there anything at this point that you can attribute to this specific game, or can they survive and be a second half team and win these games in the second half of the season?
We need to redefine slow start because it's really interesting how Penn State does it. They stopped USC out of the gate. They got the ball back. They marched right down the field. They should have scored a touchdown. They got a field goal out of it. Okay. And then after the script ends, that's when, you go off script, obviously. And that was a problem. So it's so funny because it's not the first time it's happened. Like it happened against Bowling Green. Penn State marched down the field and scored. You felt pretty good about that offense. So getting off script and then going, and that's where you get slowed down. So that's where slow start is so crazy to think about, like how successful this team was going down the field early in the game.
Yeah.
So that's where I would go with that. And then it's just kind of, you were waiting for that next play. And I felt like Penn State's players maybe fell into that a little bit, waiting for that next play. And then all of a sudden you get a turnover, and that's not ideal. That's no dice. So I think that's what you're looking for. But again, like the resiliency was there. They stepped back in the third quarter and, really pulled out a vintage performance, like again, 2016 vintage is what we're drinking tonight.
Yeah. The defense, it's interesting because I feel like they're playing well, but if you look at some of their drives, they only had 1 3-and-out in the game, but they had a 5-and-out and they had a 6-and-out, which is not a thing. But in terms of they weren't giving up, they gave up 27 yards on one drive, 15 on another. So Manny Diaz had so many of those 3-and-outs and devastating defensive series, and then they would give up a touchdown here or there on a couple of drives. But you don't have that either or this year, where the other team can still eke out some yards on a drive, and suddenly you're not getting the feeling that this defense is as dominant. On the flip side, I was happy to see that Penn State could score in under 10 plays, but still 14-yard drive for a field goal, 10-yard drive for a field goal, 8 yards for a touch, or 8 plays for a touchdown, and then 12 for 75 with all those fourth down conversions. A little bit different, but this is still a team, it feels like, that needs to methodically drive the ball down the field. They're still struggling to put together those lightning quick touchdown drives that if you can sprinkle a couple of those in, which they did, 5 for 75 and a touchdown out of the gate in the third quarter. But it's still, to me, that's one of those areas where I think they still have that last hill to crest. They still need to be a little bit quicker and not eat up 7.5 minutes on a drive for a touchdown on every single, or most of the times they need to get a touchdown. Do you think that is something that they can expand upon, or am I just kind of searching for stuff here at the end?
Yeah, there are times like in the first half that you need those big explosive plays, and you're always going to take an explosive touchdown. Like let's be honest here. But like there is a science to how you manage the game, how you get your defense some rest, how you get your offense some rhythm. But you'd like to see more of that. And I think in the last couple of weeks, if there is a criticism for the offense, it's the big plays while you're getting the 10 to 30 yard type plays. Like there's no Amari Evans over the top for 60. There's no Nick Singleton going for 80, all that kind of stuff. They had 2 carries today over 10 yards, and that was a 10-yarder and a 19-yarder. So, and that was Drew with the 19-yarder. Drew with, if you had a ticket for Drew Aller to have the longest rush in a Penn State game this year, cash that thing. I bet the odds were really good on that. So, but they got it done with some of the passing game. And I think USC's tackling did contribute to some of that, but a lot of yak, a lot of really good things from the Penn State offense to generate bigger plays, but not the big time explosive play that you probably expected with Andy Kotelnicki.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. 246 yards after the catch in this game. That is quite a lot of yak. That's going to make the final season totals look really nice. One last thing, just remind you, James Franklin's press conference and all those different things we do post-game coming up here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Please stay tuned for all of that. But we got stuff coming up from Sean Fitz and the guys over at the site. We've got film analysis bright and early tomorrow morning. Usually between 6 and 7 is when I start that in the morning, so you can join us. And I'll break down all the things that I did not see in this game and give you the details, the nitty-gritty of the what and the why. So if you're not satisfied, if you're one of the people that I saw in the chat saying this is a clear underperformance, we'll explain exactly what happened and how Penn State can correct it, if it is something that can be corrected or needs to be corrected, or if it was a one-time thing. Because a lot of times in football fits, it's a one-time thing that something happened that the other team did really well. But I'm going to put this up one more time. 50% off an annual membership at bluewhiteillustrated.com. Use promo code WEARE. Fitz, what's coming up from you in the next couple of days for Penn State football as we get out of here?
Well, I always write my impressions about the game, and they're usually not wrapped up by now, but they're going. I haven't started them because that game was ridiculous, and I'm I'm fine with it. Let's be honest here. I'm fine with it. I would rather write late impressions about a 33-30 win than any loss, to be honest with you. But it's really cool to check out our stuff. I know the guys have been texting nonstop about the coverage that we've got going up. Nate's out there. Greg is out there. Ryan's working on it as well. T. Frank, can't wait to see your breakdown of this because I'm sure there's a lot of hidden stuff that we didn't pick up the first time around.
Oh, yeah.
Other than that, hey, Ryan Barker's not by a drink in his lifetime in State College here, but hey, that kid deserves some credit. He was fantastic. Just kind of really cool. Saw him take that deep breath before that game-winning field goal, and he nailed it. And you can't ask for any more of your kicker. So Ryan Barker, overall player of the game. I know we talked offensive player, defensive player. Ryan Barker, take a bow, kid.
It is. It's been an entertaining Penn State football season already. We've had one lightning delay that has taken a game into prime time, and now we have an overtime game with a final kick to win it. The drama has not even gotten started for Penn State football yet because the stretch run is coming up. There is a bye week, but we're not going anywhere. Blue White Illustrated, the live show coming back next week. We're going to talk about this win. We're going to talk about more stuff on the second half. We're going to be previewing the opponents coming up next. So the bye week. The only thing is, my wife, we're celebrating her birthday next weekend. So Saturday, you will not hear from me. Other than that, we'll be back. I'm Thomas Ryan Carr. That's Sean Fitz for everyone else at Blue White Illustrated. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later.